am Emily Barbary from Tri-County Family Assembly of God in Bluffton, and today my sermon is titled Overcoming Obstacles. We're going to be looking at Nehemiah chapter 4, but before we get into that, I want to tell you about one of my favorite sports, lacrosse. Now, I play women's lacrosse, and in women's lacrosse, there are a whole ton of rules, but one of the major rules is no contact. And because we can't have contact, we have to come up with strategies or plays in order to accomplish our goal. One of the plays we have is called Ohio. It's an offensive play that utilizes setting a pick on the defense. What a pick does is it effectively stops the defense from doing the job they're supposed to do, and it allows our offense to score a goal. In the same way, the enemy uses his own strategies and plays in order to block us from doing the job we are called to do by God. In Nehemiah chapter 4, the Israelites face three of his main strategies. The first play they have is ridicule, or as I like to call it, our confidence breaker. In Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 2, the Israelites were consistently mocked and scorned for doing the job that God called them. The second play is intimidation. And intimidation uses the pick of fear. And what fear does is it blocks our path and it encourages us to give up and quit. Lastly, the play that he used was discouragement. And in discouragement, we get blocked by being overwhelmed. In Nehemiah chapter 4, the Israelites faced Satan's play of discouragement. And in verse 10, they said, "There is too much rubble. We can't rebuild the wall." You know, how many times in our lives have we looked at the setbacks and the failures and we told God, "I can't do this"? However, in the very next section in verse 15, the title of it is called "The Work Resumes." The work resumes. Even when they faced ridicule, even when they faced intimidation, and even when they faced discouragement, the Israelites continued doing their work. And what's interesting is that they couldn't quit, that they could have quit, but they didn't. Why? Because they knew the play and they knew how to overcome it. In lacrosse, I'm a defensive player, which means I don't necessarily need to learn Ohio or the other offensive plays that we have, but I learn it anyway because when the other team comes at me and they use that same play or they use a pick on my right, instead of getting overwhelmed and shutting down, I can instead turn to my left and see that it's wide open and spin off of the pick and continue doing the job I was chosen to do. In the same way, the Israelites were able to spin off the pick. And when you see in Nehemiah chapter 4, is every time they faced ridicule or intimidation, the very first thing they did was get on their knees and pray. Because the only one who can effectively help us overcome Satan's strategies is the one who is in complete control and who knows the outcome of what we're doing. Next, the second strategy they use to spin off the pick is to seek other faith-filled and encouraging leaders. When the Israelites faced discouragement, they were encouraged by Nehemiah's words. And when he said in verse 14 was, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord your God, who is great and awesome." Once again, we are reminded that God is in complete control and only He can deliver us. Lastly, I want to end by saying that each and every one of you has been called by God. And I know it's a lofty statement to say, but if any of you has interacted with at least one person in your life, you are a part of God's plan. In fact, God's plan, as stated in Matthew 5:14, is that we are to be lights in the world, continually showing God's love and power through our actions and deeds. And because you've been out and interacted with a person, because you have been called by God, you are going to face opposition from the enemy. But the question is, are you going to give in and let him win and quit? Or are you going to get on your knees and pray to God who is in complete control and put your trust in Him?